Awesome. Okay, cool. I think we have pretty close to the amount of people that registered, so I think we're in good shape. Just a quick check. Can you see my screen? If anybody who just wants to chat in, just to make sure you can see what I'm sharing. I'm a visual person myself, so it makes it a lot easier. Awesome. We got some confirmations. Thank you very, very much. I'll keep an eye on the chat as well. So if any questions come in, I do like to make this as participatory as possible. So feel free to ask questions. I will also throw my contact information up on the screen. So feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call, send me a note if you want some clarification or if you see something in here that makes sense and you think may benefit you. I do want to send a extra special thank you to My Office Pro for organizing this. eComp and My Office Pro have partnered together to offer pay-as-you-go workers' compensation and some other business insurance solutions out to you as users of My Office Pro. So let me just kick this off. There we go. So again, thank you very much for having me today. Before I get started, I want to thank really all of you, not only for attending or maybe viewing a recorded version of this webinar, but for everything that you do as a business owner. I love small businesses. I love entrepreneurs. I come from a family of small business owners. I made the choice myself to stay out of the family business, but I intimately understand the highs and the lows of owning a business and especially employing people. So I'm here today to share knowledge with you and discuss ways that My Office Pro and eComp can potentially help you in your business and maybe add some value to what you do. Just a quick agenda. So we'll cover a couple of things and we won't go super deep. So I'll try to give you enough knowledge that's palatable. I am a total insurance nerd, so I can talk about this stuff for days on end and I can go really deep, but I do try hard to make this very easy to understand and palatable. So we'll do just a kind of quick brief on pay-as-you-go workers' comp or workers' comp basics and pay-as-you-go, how that can help manage your cash. We'll talk about controlling workers' comp costs. I know that insurance is typically one of the larger balance sheet items within a small business. And so we'll talk about ways that we can minimize your cost or reduce your cost while at the same time minimizing employment risk. And honestly, I don't think that there's ever been a harder time in the history of the world to be an employer. And there's ways to help manage some of that risk and hopefully put some sleep back into some of the nights that you have. So what is workers' compensation? Many of you are probably, well aware, and I'd assume most of you probably have your own workers' compensation policy in place. But workers' comp is the sole remedy for workplace injuries and illnesses. Whether an employee realizes it or not, the law states that in exchange for workers' compensation that is mandated by law in almost all cases, the employee gives up their right to sue an employer for injuries and illnesses that they receive through the course of their employment. And it is required by law, and as I mentioned, just about all cases, even in some of those rare circumstances where workers' comp is not required by law, it is highly recommended because your liability doesn't go away just because the government says, hey, we're not going to make this required. You still hold the bag for all those problems. It does protect the business owner from those lawsuits. Workers' comp steps in. It's a zero deductible policy in almost all cases, limitless to most of an extent. And so it is going to cover lost wages, medical expenses, job retraining if that is necessary, and more. Ultimately, workers' compensation is a payroll tax. It's the easiest way to look at it, because the premium that you pay is a percentage of the payroll wages. There are, in fact, a few states, 4 states in particular around the country, that actually just makes workers' compensation a tax. And Ohio, Washington, North Dakota, those states have just made it a simple payroll tax, and they administer the entire policy. However, for the rest of the country, it is administered by private insurance companies. But that tax component is honestly a good way to look at it. And if you look at workers' comp as a payroll tax, it truly is the most complicated payroll tax that honestly a business owner has to manage. And the reason I say that is the workers' comp tax that you pay, it's not the same for all businesses, right? So imagine if I said, hey, I can go out to market and I can shop your federal income tax and I can find you a lower rate. Everybody would tell me 100% of the time, yes, let's do that. And you can do that with workers' comp. But so the workers' comp rate's not the same for all businesses. It's not even the same for all employees within a business. If you have salespeople and clerical people, and maybe you have installers, all of those employees, you are responsible for a different rate, a different percentage of their payroll. And so you have to manage all of that. And we'll talk about the difference in a traditional policy versus pay-as-you-go and how it alleviates a lot of those problems. 1099 exposures, right? Subcontractors are handled very uniquely when it comes to workers' compensation. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well, because there's a lot of risks that come with having 1099, specifically as it pertains to workers' compensation. And the better you manage not only your policy, but your workplace safety, the claims that inevitably do happen, it allows, there's a system in place called the Experience Mod that allows you to get a credit or a debit or a reward or a punishment based upon how your business performs with workers' compensation relative to other businesses that are in the same industry. And so we'll talk about, what that means and what that impact can be. Now, if we boil it down in its simplest terms, ultimately, I don't have to tell you that cash is king, right? And cash management for a small business is one of, if not the most important financial objective that you have. Profitable or not, managing liquidity can really make or break your business. And the workers' compensation payment service that you have access to with eComp and MyOffice Pro is at its core a cash management tool. It is a better way to pay for your workers' compensation premiums that allows you to hold on to and manage cash on hand better. Assets are always better sitting in your bank account as opposed to sitting in somebody else's bank account, and especially sitting in the insurance company's bank account. So I use an analogy when we talk about pay-as-you-go workers' comp to try to simplify it as easy as possible. And because today, honestly, workers' comp has become highly commoditized, right? The coverage is standard. It's very, very regulated. The premium is competitive. So the price that you pay is a competitive market. But I relate workers' comp and pay-as-you-go workers' comp to gas. So imagine, right? Today, when you buy gas, you go to the gas station, you put in your credit card, you fill up your tank, and it kind of sits there, right? And over days or weeks, you burn through that gas. But you paid for all of that gas up front. Imagine if you could go to the gas station, not put in your credit card, fill up your gas, and then pay for that gasoline as you use it. That may be very beneficial for you, especially if you're like me, and since the pandemic, you work remotely, and I don't drive that much anymore. Paying for your gas as you use it would be a revolutionary thought. And that's how pay-as-you-go workers' compensation really is. And It's another way to just integrate a solution into your payroll platform and make it a lot easier. So if we compare the traditional model of workers' compensation, the traditional policy comes with a lot of problems, right? A lot of estimates right from the beginning. So for example, when you buy a workers' compensation policy the traditional way, and each time that policy renews, you have to estimate your payroll. You have to predict the future and say, here's how much payroll I'm going to pay my employees. And not only do you have to do that for all of your employees in entirety, you really have to predict that for each group of employees. So your sales staff, right? How much do you project to pay your sales staff over the next 12 months? Your clerical employees, your installers, your cleaners, your drivers, whatever job classifications you have to predict the future and say, here's how much I'm going to pay them over the next 12 months. And that's been extremely difficult over the last few years, hasn't it? With turnover, the Great Resignation, wage increases, just a lot of changes probably happening into your business. Predicting the next 12 months of payroll can be very, very difficult. Then, based upon those predictions, the insurance company gives you a quote, and they're going to ask you for a large sum of money up front, potentially the entire premium. Usually at a minimum, you're going to pay 25% upfront. You're going to pay that based upon those payroll estimates that you made. You're going to pay that balance in some sort of frequency. Maybe it's monthly, maybe it's quarterly. And again, maybe they require you to pay it in full. There's fees tacked onto that policy if you don't pay the premium in full. If the insurance company has to bill you, generally they're going to charge you, $10, $15, $25 per payment additionally because it wasn't paid in full. Depending on the carrier and how they administer their policy, you may have monthly reports or quarterly reports that you provide to them to document how you're trending towards those payroll estimates that you made. Maybe you are paying it as you go and you're logging into an insurance carrier portal and you're manually entering the information, right? So that does give you pay as you go, but it requires a manual effort on your part. And then at a minimum, at the end of every policy year, there's an audit. And nobody enjoys audits. It could be problematic. You may not have representation. There may be a dispute between you and the insurance company. Moreover, typically, because predicting the future and estimating how much payroll you're going to pay over the next 12 months, and then getting to the end of that audit and figuring out were you accurate, usually you're not accurate. There's some plus or minus. Hopefully it's small and you maybe owe a little bit of money or you expect a little bit of refund. But depending on what happens in your business, what stage you are in growth, if you add new locations, you add new employees, maybe your sales staff has a banner year and makes way more money than what you originally estimated, it could come with a large surprise balance at the end of the year. Either way, it's time consuming, it's cumbersome, you have to complete the audit, you have to provide all of the payroll documentation, and it's just an antiquated way of dealing with it. And in fact, that audit is a lot more intrusive since 2020 because the pandemic has changed so many businesses in the way they operate. Remote employees, employees that have now relocated across state lines, companies that are delivering today that maybe weren't delivering previously. A lot of changes in the employment dynamic and the operations has forced the insurance companies to get a lot more intrusive with their audit. They ask a lot more questions, trying to kind of catch up to changes that have occurred in the policy over the last few years that most people don't always remember to notify their insurance company about. So as you're probably experiencing today, if you don't have pay-as-you-go, those problems are not revenue generating. It's not adding value into your business. It's an administrative task. And so what eComp and My Office Pro want to give back to you through our pay-as-you-go platform is time, effort, and energy. And in a lot of cases, we can save you money as well. When you look at a pay-as-you-go workers' compensation policy, there is no large upfront down payment. Now, when we get you a quote, we're going to get you an estimate based upon those projections that you're going to make, right? So you have an idea of what to expect from a premium cost, but what we are really going to focus on is what's your rate? What is the percentage of payroll that you are going to pay for workers' compensation based upon your wages? Because that's the important number to focus on. We are not going to collect any money up front. You don't pay a dime of workers' compensation premium with eComp until you're actually paying employees. And the premium that you pay is going to be based upon actual payroll wages. So think about your business. Is there a seasonal component? Do you have busy seasons and slow seasons? Is there a time where your business is completely closed, right? If you're maybe a contractor in the Northeast, or somewhere where there's snow and snow plowing isn't in your operations, maybe there's a few months that you don't do any business. When you have pay as you go, you're paying based on that actual payroll. So if business is booming and you're at full staff and you're paying those wages, revenue's coming in, you're paying your workers' compensation during that time period. If you get into a slower season, maybe you're a little bit less staffed, you're not paying as many wages, you're also not paying as much workers' comp premium. If you're closed for a couple months, great. You don't pay any workers' compensation premium during that time period. So from a cash management standpoint, you didn't put a big down payment up front, and you're paying for your workers' compensation premiums based upon the normal fluctuations in your payroll. At the end of the year, if you get an audit, in most cases, eComp is taking care of that audit for you. So if you're a single location, something very straightforward that eComp can complete that workers' comp audit for you, we will. If we can't complete it for you, we already received all of the payroll from My Office Pro. We have all of the records. We're going to get that audit kind of prepped. We're going to work with you to make sure it gets completed, and really take that stress and that burden off of you of having to take care of that at the end of the year. So as you can see, pay-as-you-go workers' comp, when you consider workers' comp as ultimately a payroll tax, it's just a better way for you to manage that policy, and it accomplishes a few things. And we'll kind of break that down, in this visual, right, and how it works. If we start from the beginning, eComp is going to shop the market for you. I'll show you some of the insurance companies we work with. Ultimately, we have pay-as-you-go with more than 25 insurance companies. So we are going to take your business, we're going to present it to all of the insurance partners that we have, and we're going to send to you the most competitive options to make sure that we're controlling your workers' compensation cost, not only when you purchase the policy, but every single year that policy comes up for renewal. We're going to shop the market. We're going to issue that policy for you with no down payment, no money up front. And then when you run payroll, My Office Pro sends eComp the payroll data automatically through an integration that we have, and you will receive a workers' compensation report. So every single pay period, you will know all of the details behind how much workers' comp premium am I paying and why. That premium will then be ACH'd based upon that report a few days later. And that process continues until the end of the policy period. And that's why you have no surprises at audit. We're collecting the premium on actual payroll. We're sending the premium and the payroll records to the insurance company each pay period. And so there shouldn't be any balances, there shouldn't be any refunds. And the insurance company, because they're confident that they're getting paid for the risk that they're taking, their audit on a pay-as-you-go policy is significantly more streamlined. So I'm going to pause for a quick second, and I'm going to check the chat, and I'm going to see if we have any questions. Okay, good. I don't see anything in there. Again, feel free to chat anything in. Any questions you have, any clarifications, happy to answer those. So I mentioned that we do pay-as-you-go with more than 25 insurance companies. These are all A-rated national insurance companies. So you may recognize a lot of these names, The Hartford, Travelers, Employers, Berkshire Hathaway, AmTrust, Pi Insurance, Markel, CNA. These are a lot of the largest insurance companies in the country. There's also some insurance companies that you may not recognize. AmeriSafe, for example, great insurance company. They take a lot of risks that a lot of insurance companies don't. They write the tree trimming companies, the oil and gas, the trucking, and they do a great job with that. And Berkeley Net writes a lot of our higher risk contractors. And so our goal is really to be able to offer a workers' comp policy, or especially a pay-as-you-go workers' comp policy, to really anybody that wants to take advantage of that. And so we work really hard to have a very broad appetite, bring on all of the best insurance companies, and make sure that you're getting the best insurance company for the best price, and then matching that to the best way to pay for it, which is on pay-as-you-go. Now, I'd said earlier, right, workers' comp has become highly commoditized, and it has. But there's a lot of ways to really stand out with value. And that is really the key at eComp. It's really the item that I'm most proud of. And so I'll go back to my gas station analogy, right? Pay-as-you-go workers' comp is filling your gas tank and paying for it as you drive. And eComp is like a full service gas station, right? And so you pull up to a red light, you got a gas station on the left, a gas station on the right, the price is the same, it's raining outside. You're going to go to the gas station that's going to pump it for you, right? Stay dry, let them take care of it. And that's really how eComp works. Now, in most cases, we're actually better priced. So not only can we get you that pays you, not only can we pump the gas for you, so to say, but it's cheaper. We also give you an extremely high level of service. So we give every single policyholder a dedicated account manager. That means no 800 numbers, not static email boxes. You're not talking to chat bots. You get a person at eComp. A person who gets to know your business, gets to know your insurance needs, gets to know what you expect and how you want to be serviced. Are you somebody who likes to have phone calls? Great. They'll call you if they have any questions. Are you somebody that says, hey, no, text me? That's the best way. Great. Your account manager will get to know you, put notes on your account for what you expect, and service you the way that you is the best fit for you. We also provide a lot of audit support. As I mentioned, potentially no audit. So in a lot of cases, we're going to complete this audit for you. If we can't complete the audit for you, your dedicated account manager is responsible for making sure that gets completed and helping to get that done with whatever that you need. We also are very hands-on with our claims. And this is very unique for us. And a lot of people don't necessarily realize, especially in workers' comp, the insurance company isn't always that eager to close these claims, right? And an open claim is detrimental to you and your loss ratio. And that, as we'll talk about in a minute, really impacts your overall rates and damages your cost control. So eComp automatically actively manages every single claim that's over $25,000. Claims under $25,000, they're a lot more routine, not a lot of efficiencies to find there. But when your injured employee has more than $25,000 of medical expenses and lost wages, that's where we can make a really big impact. The insurance company will keep that claim open longer than they need to, which goes against your loss history. They will assign reserves to a policy, which also goes against your loss history. And so if an employee is back to work, they haven't sought medical services in a few months, we're going to put pressure on the insurance company to close that claim, eliminate those reserves, and have a positive impact on your overall loss history. That's really, really important. And we'll look at some examples of that in a few moments. We also have programs where we can offer safety support from certified safety professionals. We are going to proactively shop your policy every single year to make sure that we are controlling your costs. The insurance industry is notorious for what we call honeymoon rates, right? That first policy that you buy will be very competitive, and slowly over time, they'll creep up your rates until somebody pays attention. We are very well aware of that, and we are going to actively shop that policy to keep the insurance companies honest on the rates that they're offering you. And we are a full service agency. We can manage all of your risk through your business liability, your commercial auto, employment practice liability, cyber liability insurance, which I can't emphasize enough how badly people need cyber liability insurance, E&O, and more. So pay-as-you-go workers' comp is the cornerstone. It is a huge advantage that we offer because of our integration with My Office Pro, but we can meet all of your insurance and risk management needs. So if you're interested in getting a quote, before I transition into, cost control and some other ways to benefit your business, if you're interested in pay-as-you-go workers' comp, if you want to get a quote, if you want to talk more, reach out to My Office Pro, reach out to eComp. You can also visit our website at ecompnow.com. In the top right corner, you'll see there's a button to start your quote. It will ask you who your payroll company is, so make sure you fill in My Office Pro so we can give them a heads up, as well as offer you pay-as-you-go workers' compensation. So I'm going to stop for a minute before I jump into this section, and let me just check the chat and see if we have any questions. Looking good. All right, great. Again, feel free to ask questions at any time. I'll throw my contact information up at the end as well if you want to take something offline. So I think that made a lot of sense. I hope it did to you. I hope that you see the value of paying your workers' compensation premiums on a pay-as-you-go basis. Now I want to transition into guiding you on other ways to control your workers' compensation costs, as well as minimize your risk as an employer. Controlling costs is critical, right? Whether it's your material costs, your labor costs, your rent, whatever it may be, your insurance is very important as well. And claims history and how you manage your claims is really the most controllable impact that you can have. Beyond making sure that you have an agent that's working for you like they should, that's actively shopping your policy like they should, controlling your workers' comp costs is heavily weighted on controlling your loss history. And so if you look at how is the insurance company determining these premiums, it's determined on a couple of factors. One, the industry, the class code that you have, right? The job duties of your employees and how those are classified. The insurance carrier selection, so shopping your policy and making sure that you're getting the most competitive rate, as well as your claims history and your claims management. And the impact that has, your claims history will ultimately generate a workers' compensation experience mod. The experience mod is a reward or a punishment based upon your workers' compensation premium and your claims history relative to other businesses in the same industry. Minimizing claims combined with an agent that does a good job at managing your claims will have a very positive impact on your workers' compensation costs. And minimizing your workers' comp premium maximizes your profits, it reduces your costs, and it can really give you a competitive advantage over others in your industry. Because your experience mod is relative, it's compared exclusively to companies that have the same workers' comp class codes as you. Let's say if you're a manufacturer or you're a restaurant and you're in the same area, your per square footage of rent is probably similar, your employee wages are probably similar, your material costs are similar, but you do a lot better job at managing your workers' comp claims. And in fact, you secure yourself a credit mod. You can really differentiate your costs relative to other competitors by controlling that component of your business. And I'll throw an example up on screen, right? This is a real life example, and we'll take a look at this. This is class code 4623, which is cosmetic, personal care, or perfume product manufacturing. They also have class code 8810 for their clerical employees, as well as 8871, which is kind of a new class code for telecommuting or remote working employees. And so when I mentioned earlier, insurance companies are paying a lot closer attention to the workers' comp audit over the last few years. This is a class code that's getting added to workers' comp policies, usually found via the audit and not always because the employer remembered to contact the insurance company and disclose that. Now, if we look at these three class codes and the payroll and the rates, what I want you to focus on is the cost of this business's insurance for workers' comp, $56,350. However, they have a problem. The experience modification on their policy is 1.44. So 1.0 is what's called par or even, right? There's no benefit, there's no detriment. Everybody starts at 1.0. And then over a couple of years, you'll build up some premium and some claims history. And once there's enough data, the insurance industry, now this isn't controlled by the insurance companies. This experience modification is assigned to you by the Department of Insurance. So this business has had some problems. Their experience modification is 1.44. That is a 44% penalty on the workers' comp policy. So what was already a $56,000 workers' comp policy is getting added an additional almost $25,000. $25,000 on top of that already $56,000. I'm taking them for a grand total of $80,000 in workers' compensation premium. Now, if they've done a better job, right, managing claims, reducing claims, making sure that the agent is managing open claims and getting them closed, if you look at the opposite, right, if they were getting a 44% credit, right, or a 0.56 mod, this would be a $25,000 discount. They can, in fact, cut their workers' comp premiums in half. But this business didn't have that situation. They're paying an additional $25,000 in premium. Now, what we did as their agent was we took a deeper dive into this. We got their claims history. What's the reason for the claims? What happened? What has the business done to prevent those claims from reoccurring in the future? How could we kind of, take this, the situation that this business is in, and how can we polish it up and make it look as good as possible, or really kind of justify to get some offsets here? And that's what we did, right? So this company had some kind of uncontrollable losses. They had some things that they could have controlled that they've addressed. They've put other policies and procedures in place, and we were able to take it to market, negotiate on their behalf, get a 39% credit added to that. It offsetted a lot of that mod that they experienced, and then it's kind of a pay it forward situation, right? The insurance company is going to monitor this client and see everything that they implemented and the discount that they applied. Did they earn it? Or if their claims continue to be problematic, all of that's going to go away, and they're going to be stuck paying that. But ideally, we can get ahead of this, because in reality, I probably could have got most of this 39% discount applied to them, even if their mod was a lot better than this. So it still costs them tens of thousands of dollars because of their claims history. Here's another example, and this is really what you're seeking, right? In this case, class code 9079. It's a restaurant. We see their payroll. All of that stuff ultimately resulted in total premium of $7,840. Now, this business owner has done a really good job at managing their claims. They've prevented injuries. When claims have occurred, they've done a good job working with their agent and getting those claims closed and the amounts minimized. And so they've earned a 0.76 experience mod. That is a 24% credit on their workers' comp. So what was a $7,800 policy now has $1,800 taken off of that. And we still did the same thing. We took a deep dive into the business. We got to know about their business practices, their HR policies. What things have they done to make sure that they have few claims have earned this mod? And we were still able to get an additional 50% schedule credit added. So the policy that started at $78.40 had $18.82 taken off because of their experience mod. And then they had another $29.79 taken off because of the schedule credit we were able to negotiate for on their behalf. And so it started at a $7,800 policy, ended at a $3,400 policy. More than half of their premium was saved. More than half of what they could have or potentially should have paid has been taken off by their experience modification and our ability to paint them in a great light and get them even additional credits above and beyond that. So you can look at, what boat do you want to be in? Do you want to be in $25,000 of additional expense, or getting your workers' comp premium cut by more than half? And now you can see, how does that help you from a competitive advantage, right? How does that help you relative to other businesses in your industry? If we pretend for a minute that these were both restaurants, this client is paying $25,000 extra. It's 25 grand coming off their profits, 25 grand that has to show up in their menu prices, 25 grand that comes out of the maintenance and all the things that they're putting in to make sure that they have the ambiance that people want to come to. And this company has significantly more efficiencies and more money that they can invest into their business instead of paying for workers' comp. So claims control is really important. And claims control comes down to prevention and response. And now, just like everything, an ounce of prevention is always worth a pound of cure. However, the cure is also really critical, because claims with workers' comp to a certain extent are expected, and how you manage those claims, how your agent manages those claims, are really important. And having sound HR practices that My Office Pro can help you with, in addition to what eComp does, really lays an important foundation for your own protection. Simple things, right? Handbook policies, having handbook policies that address claims and claims reporting. How you hire and onboard, including, potentially pre-employment screenings. How you engage your employees with regular performance reviews and provide feedback. Having an HR professional on staff, or what in a lot of cases makes a lot more sense to outsource to help you with those functions. And having access to safety training, maybe in person or via webinar, leveraging the additional services that most of these insurance companies honestly offer to you at little or no charge more often than not. To really help you to promote culture, promote workplace safety, and reap all of the benefits that comes from good risk management. So again, as we talked about earlier, just being an employer, my heart goes out. I love all of the entrepreneurs on this call. I love what you do. And I know that there is no harder time to be an employer than today. And one of those things is hurt feelings, right? So it says on the screen, what does workers' comp not cover? And that's a big one. So workers' comp cares if you break your foot, you fall down, you get exposed to some sort of chemicals, you get long-term exposure to something that causes a critical illness. Workers' comp's going to apply to all of those things. If your employee says, my feelings were hurt, workers' comp doesn't care about hurt feelings. That's one of those exclusions. And what do I mean by hurt feelings? Well, it could be wrongful termination, right? Have you ever terminated somebody and had them be like, yeah, you're right, this was justified? No, I don't think so. Accountability seems to be at an all-time low. So wrongful termination, harassment. And that doesn't mean the business owner is the only one responsible for harassment. You could have employees harassing each other. You could have your leadership committing acts of harassment, but the business owner is ultimately responsible and liable for all of those things. Wage and hour violations, misclassifications of 1099s has been very heavily scrutinized over the last few years. Salary versus hourly has been very scrutinized. And so those wage and hour violations are a lot more common. Discrimination, wrongful discipline, And there's a lot more: failure to train, failure to promote. And with good HR practices, you can prevent, right? So that ounce of prevention is really, really important, right? And evaluating your HR practices, talking to the professionals at My Office Pro about ways they can help you with your HR practices, that will be the prevention piece. But even with all of the prevention in the world, what I always say is this is America, and you can get sued at any time for any reason. And at a minimum, you have to defend yourself. And I don't have to tell you as an employer that you're at a disadvantage in the court system when those things happen. And so what ECOMP also offers to you is what's called employment practice liability insurance. And that covers exactly what it sounds like, those employment practices. So if the accusation of, right? So what I always highlight with this policy is that it responds at the accusation, because I believe that you're not harassing employees, you're not discriminating, that you take your termination events very, very serious. And those decisions are tough, but an employee, current or past, or a subcontractor, current or past, may not feel the same way. They may take legal action. They may contact a government entity that will help them to seek damages. And so the employment practice liability insurance pays at the accusation of, and it provides legal resources. It provides remedy resources. It takes that burden off of your plate and transfers it to the insurance company. Now, what I will tell you is you can't get employment practice liability insurance without employment practices, right? So you should have a handbook, you should have company policies, you should have some foundational HR systems in place. And once you do, the insurance company will take over the remaining risk and they will respond to all of those things. So as an employer, I'm sure this has happened to many of you. Just think about a time that you've laid in bed at night, you've stared at the ceiling, and you've thought about that circumstance. You know, that comment that one employee made to another, that circumstance, that tough conversation that your manager had to have with an employee, meaning your employee that's managing other employees in the business. That crude comment that somebody made, that off-color joke, that's something that showed up in the chat that, maybe in the past would have been a little less problematic than maybe today. If you laid up at night and you thought about that, or that created anxiety, employment practice liability gives you some peace of mind. So that way you can do all the things that you do as a business owner and protect your risk and minimize your exposure, and have HR practices, and then you can transfer what is left. And ECOMP can help you with that, and My Office Pro can absolutely help you with that. So our time is short today, but honestly, my passion for helping, My Office Pro's passion for helping you, we are in business with you. I really look at all of our clients as partners. And so even though my time is limited today, I'd love to talk to you more. I'd love to help you tackle some of these tasks and make some of your risk management items easier and better. So my contact information is up on the screen. Feel free to reach out.